Yo guys, Superior David here. It's been a minute since I've been able to just sort of chat with you guys because I've been so busy just, we're moving across the country. So appreciate all of your patience with that. But, we just got a balance patch last week and it's also the beginning of a new season. So I thought now would be the perfect time to go over some of the best decks to emerge from the balance patch that you can use to hit legend this month. So if all this is sounding good to you, make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe because it really does help me out. And I guess with that, let's get into these decks. So first up, we've got the deck that's truly dictating the meta right now, and that is Naga Demon Hunter. Now, this deck was good before the balance patch, and it is an absolute monster after. I think much of the discussion around this deck really centers on the Drekthar. Drekthar is really proven to be a very problematic card in the game and pushes this, archetype that already has a lot going for it and just makes it that much better. But Naga Demon Hunter actually has so much going for it beyond the Drekthar. There's actually just a lot of powerful cards here, and I think what makes this deck so formidable beyond the Drekthar is that it's just so incredibly snowbally. You look at the early game, you got Vicious Slither Spear, you got the Battlesworn Vanguard. These two minions could just really start applying a lot of pressure just from the get-go, especially if you could weave in a multi-strike. Speaking of the multi-strike, you could also do some very filthy combos with the Dead Prison Glaive to be able to push past taunts while also just damaging your opponent. I feel like knowing how to manage your Dead Prison Glaive swings is one of the critical elements of this deck, and just having played against it a lot towards the end of the season while I was in top 100, I noticed that the better Demon Hunter players would often be very patient with their Dead Prison Glaives because they know that if they can rip a multi-strike with this Dead Prison Glaive, it represents so much damage rather than just using it to go face every turn. And another card that I think is just really important to mastering this deck is the Lady Stheno. Knowing when to go in on your Stheno versus when you need to hold back resources and wait until you could play a bunch of spells at once to just OTK your opponent with Stheno, I think is really important for this deck. But, overall, yes, Drekthar is really good and definitely pushes this deck to be a little too powerful, but I think this deck has a lot of other really good stuff going on, and it's definitely public enemy #1 on ladder, dictating the whole meta. So if you want to win some games, I think this is definitely the best deck to do so. But if you want to take down those Demon Hunters, there does exist a deck that seems to go, somewhat toe-to-toe with it on ladder, and that is Control Warrior. Now, this is the deck that Tice hit rank 1 legend with, I believe. I was sort of rocking this in top 100 towards the end of the last season, and it worked out very well for me. And I think a lot of people, they focus on the Kazakhstan when talking about this deck. Kazakhstan, it's a pretty good closer. It really helps us out in any other slower matchups. But what really makes this deck so good, the real power here is truly the From the Depths. This card is absolutely broken. I've talked about it a lot on the channel, or if you watch the streams, I think this card is so busted. Yeah, sure, you would love to be discounting all this top end stuff, Onyxia, Kazakhstan, Rokara, Nelly. Yeah, you want to discount this stuff, but even if you're hitting some of the cheaper stuff, you're basically just not paying mana for these cards anyways, and that's really good because you could play the From the Depths, go Sir Finley, and then just dish out a bunch of the cards off the bottom of your deck to just gain a lot of tempo on the board, or just make some value plays, maybe with a Brand Bronzebeard comboed with a discounted School Teacher. Just really powerful stuff. And I would say if you're looking to beat up on those Demon Hunters, I think out-tempoing your opponent with mana cheating from the Depths, I think is the way to do it. You're never going to get to Kazakhstan in those matchups, and you really you can't really out-sustain a Demon Hunter. Sometimes you can, but I think for the most part, Demon Hunter just has an obscene amount of burst. So you could get down all of your armor, but they could potentially still kill you. It's actually it's obscene. So I find that usually I'll win by going From the Depths, and then hopefully hit my Finley, or maybe I'll just hit a good card off of From the Depths, maybe a Nelly, and then I'll try to out-tempo my opponent that way. But if you want to learn more about this deck, I have a video on it. It's not this exact list, but I think this list is definitely the superior one, especially if you want to smack those Demon Hunters. So to recap things so far, we've got Naga Demon Hunter sort of dictating the meta. Then we got sort of Control Warrior being the deck that's trying to capitalize and farm those Naga Demon Hunters. And that brings us over to Questunder over here, which is sort of the deck that is, it does well enough against Naga Demon Hunter. It's actually slightly unfavored, but it does well enough, and it absolutely is favored against any control decks. And so people sort of play Quest Hunter because it's a well-rounded deck, but it more specifically it beats control decks. It does very well against control decks because the refreshing hero power you get off of your quest, it just represents so much damage, more damage than these control decks can even handle. It's actually really silly. But even beyond that, we've got the Drekthar, which is just really good for applying that mid-game pressure, and I think this is one of the cards that really gives the edge to the Quest Hunter against these slower decks. You know, you get down Drekthar, maybe you get down like a Treasure Guard, Restaurant Viper, whatever. You don't really care that much what you get down, because just being able to get like a little bit of chip damage in with these cards, or like forcing your opponent to like have removal, and if they don't, you know, you can just sort of steamroll in that way. That's really good. And then even beyond that, you know, we got the Beastalker Tavish, which I think, you know, causes like a lot of confusion. People are never sure when to play this, but if you do want to learn more about like, you know, when to play your Tavish, definitely check out the video I uploaded on Quest Hunter just the other day. But anyways, I find that when I'm playing the Quest Hunter, I will usually try to go for Tavish in like any slower matchup. It's pretty good in like slower matchups, and I will usually try to time it so I complete the second phase of the quest like in those slower matchups after I've played the Tavish, so I can get the 0 mana refreshing hero power. But I will say, like, if you need to play the Tavish after you've already like made your hero power cost 0, it's no big deal. I've still won games that way. It's just, you know, it's just not ideal. Overall, not really much new going on with Quest Hunter. It's a deck that was pretty good before the balance patch, but was sort of overshadowed by all the Druids. And now that Druid's been, you know, knocked down a bit, it's really been seeing a resurgence to sort of, you know, try to beat up on those control decks, as well as just, you know, again, it does well enough against Demon Hunters. So definitely a really solid deck for ladder. And would not be surprised if this deck eventually gets nerfed, because it is really powerful. Now, Quest Hunter has been benefiting from like all the Druids sort of, you know, taking a step back on ladder, because, you know, it just got nerfed. But I think people are starting to catch on that Quest Hunter, you know, it's sort of running amok, and we're starting to see this resurgence of Druid, some ramp Druid, but I've been seeing a lot more Celestial Alignment Druid. And what makes Celestial Alignment Druid so good against Quest Hunter specifically is, you know, you'll just ramp in the early game. You know, you'll play your Wild Growth, your Nourish, yay, even your Guff if you want to, and then you just play Celestial Alignment, and then the Quest Hunter just really can't do much. They can't really finish their quest because they just don't have mana anymore, and it's really freaking funny. But anyways, let's take a step back here, and basically just how these games play out with this deck is that, like, you know, in the early game, you definitely want to hit your ramp, so you can play like Alignment as soon as possible if you're going up against a slower deck. I feel against like more aggressive decks, you usually want to just like ramp so you can hit like Scale Vinixia ASAP. I feel like if you don't hit that Scale Vinixia, man, you are going to have a real bad time. It's really like the best way for stabilizing in those aggressive matchups, which, you know, do give this deck a bit of a hard time, just a little FYI there. But, you know, once you play the Alignment, that's when the fun really gets started, because basically your goal is to just have these huge tempo swings. You know, we have a lot of ways to develop, to apply like a lot of pressure on the board really fast. You know, once you play Alignment, these Naga Giants, they are now free. Really powerful to just jump an 8/8 on the board after, you know, you restrict your opponent's mana. Really good stuff. But then, you know, we also got like the Onyxia and the Alexstrasza, which is nice burst. And, you know, we run these dragons because, of course, we got the Kazakhstan. And I think Kazakhstan is how you win, you know, I mean, definitely most of the slower matchups. I feel like most of the aggro matchups are sort of won by, you know, you'll play Onyxia, then you'll go like Miracle Growth into like, you know, hopefully an Earthen Scales to stabilize. But, you know, again, back to Kazakhstan with slower matchups, you play the Kazakhstan, you get all these treasures, and then from there, you want to play the, where are you? The Alignment again, good old Alignment, to make all those treasures cost 1 mana. And then, you know, if you're smart with your like Anaconda or like your Nourish, you can usually like draw into those treasures in the same turn and just really just blow up your opponent. It's hysterical, and you feel so cool when you pull it off. And if you want to see like this deck in action, definitely check out the video I uploaded on this like a few days ago. This is the same list. This is Flying Kraken's list, and it's been serving me pretty well. And I think going forward, you will be seeing Druid coming back in the metagame, just because there's so much Quest Hunter on ladder. So, you know, like, even though this deck, you know, doesn't do too great against like all the Demon Hunters, it does well against Quest Hunter, as well as like just any control decks, that I think it's earned its spot in the metagame. Now, moving on to the final best deck that I feel like is really just shaping the meta right now, and that is this Naga Hero Power Mage. I feel like everyone was very familiar with the Naga Mage when it came out, and I think that deck sort of fell, you know, it fell a bit to the wayside. It was good, but it didn't have like enough consistency, and it could struggle to close out games. Well, this new Naga Hero Power Mage sort of tries to remedy that by having the like a hero power package with the already good, you know, like Spitelash Siren Naga shenanigans. So as you can see, you know, we got like the Wildfires, the Reckless Apprentices, and the Mordresh. This gives the deck just so much closing power against like slower decks like the Druid that I just talked about, or like any control decks that you happen to find on ladder, because, you know, with the Wildfires and the, you know, like Commander Savars, you can get your hero power to do like an obscene amount of damage, and to, you know, to make things even better, we've even got the Magister Dawngrasp just to, you know, do more damage with our hero power. But again, the core of this deck truly is the Naga package. You know, without Spitelash Siren, I'd say this deck probably just doesn't work. I mean, no, it definitely doesn't work. Knowing how to navigate these Spitelash Siren turns turns, I think is the key to just mastering this deck. So if you want to learn like more about this Naga Mage deck, definitely check out the video I just dropped on it. It's just, this deck is just so much fun. And I think even beyond that, it is actually really well positioned in the meta right now because it does well against, you know, like some of the slower decks like Druid and Warrior that are popping up like left and right now. And, you know, I think it does okay enough against Demon Hunter. You know, Demon Hunter could definitely be rough. You're definitely looking for like your first flames in that matchup, but the only matchup that really like gives you a hard time is probably Quest Hunter. But even then, you know, you could absolutely just like high roll with the Spylash Siren and just, you know, scam your opponent that way with a just good old fashioned mana cheating. So, you know, I think a lot of people would probably put like a Paladin deck in this slot, but I think Paladin is, you know, severely overrated. And I could actually see this deck, you know, standing the test of time, unlike the past iterations of the Naga Mage, because it just, the hero power package just brings so much consistency to the table here. And it's just, again, check this deck out. I've rambled on enough. So there you have it, the 5 best decks that you can use to hit legend. And just to recap, we've got the Naga Demon Hunter, which is really the driving force of the meta, the Control Warrior, which is sort of rising up to counter those Naga Demon Hunters, the Quest Hunter, which is sort of just slapping those Control Warriors and pretty much any other control decks, the Celestial Druid, that's sort of, you know, slapping on these 2 archetypes, doesn't do too well against you. And then we got the Naga Hero Power Mage, which I feel like is more of the wild card of the group here, but I think it's very formidable against, you know, like Druid and Warrior, and does, you know, okay enough against Naga Demon Hunter. Definitely want to try to avoid those Quest Hunters though. But anyways, let me know what you think about these decks down in the comments, and if you made it this far, make sure to hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because, you know, again, it really helps me out and it makes you very superior. And I guess, you know, in the meantime, stay superior. Catch y'all next one. Later. Get that